NBC Local SKYPATH Control, the Fluke Terminal Software version 102, moving your secondary antenna, controlling the incoming satellite feed on 2E, the NBC News interrupt alert. Good morning, my name is Tom Fergus and I'm at KSBW in Salinas, California, here to demonstrate to you the new Fluke functionality that you will be getting in our new software 102. Before we get into reviewing the screen that you presently have, though, what I'd like to do is focus your attention on the switch settings in back of the Fluke terminal. At the various stations that I have visited thus far, I noticed that switch number 6 in the dip switch cluster is set in correctly. In making reference to our training manual that we had handed out in the past, you will notice that on page 6 it indicates only that switches 1 and 2 should be in the up position and all the remainder ones should be in the down position, and that is the correct way the switches should be set. If you find that your Fluke terminal has switch number 6 improperly selected, please reposition it to the down position. Okay. I've intentionally turned the Fluke off. Quite often you fellows experience power failures in the middle of the evening or late at night and come in the morning and see some funny looking characters on there, numbers that don't mean anything. To instruct the site controller to repaint the screen, all one has to do is press the center of the Fluke screen, and that'll send a message to the site controller that'll cause it to repaint the structure of the screen itself. Here at KSBW, they've set up 2 monitors for us to view the incoming video on 2R and likewise 2E. They're presently on the air with 1R and 1E, so we can't muck with that. So let's review now the screen that you've had at your facility for the last few months. Number one, if we take note that 1R is highlighted and 1E, 2R, and 2E are not. The 1E being highlighted indicates to us that the video present on the jack field labeled 1R is being protected by the equipment that is associated with receiving 1E. If we look below that, we will see that 1R is getting its service via SKYPATH 04, as is 1E, and the source identification on the incoming video is 162 for both 1R and 1E, as it should be. Burbank presently uses SID numbers in the range of 160 to 169, and New York SKYPATH uses SID numbers in the area of 30 to 39. So if you see a number in the area of 160 to 169, chances are that source is coming from Burbank, or if the SID number range is 30 through 39, chances are that's coming from New York SKYPATH Control. Also take note that the frame synchronizer is sitting in the 2R path by virtue of its button being highlighted. And as you recall, if I wanted to, I could put the frame synchronizer either into the 1R feed, 1E feed, 2R, or 2E. Also note that the SID unit supplying video to 1R and 1E is in the normal mode, and that's indicated by the panel below the frame synchronizer buttons. And likewise, 2R and 2E are in a non-transposed mode. If we now have a situation where, as an example, our receiver feeding video to 2R maybe has broken, or better yet, you have a situation where you only have one STL link between your master control room and your earth station for receiving video on 2R and 2E, and you'd like to see what's on 2E. Well, all one would have to do is press the SID panel that's located below the frame sync buttons, and you will notice that, number one, the 2R, 2E videos have switched, and secondly, the panel has lit up to indicate that that particular SID unit is in a transposed mode. Along with that, you'll note now also that the video that's being supplied to 2R is coming from SKYPATH 04. In the past it was 07, and likewise the video supplying 2E is coming from SKYPATH 7. And likewise the SID source number that's feeding 2R has gone from 37 to 162. Notice the frame synchronizer now is indicated in a 2E path. Well, when the SID was not transposed, the frame synchronizer was connected to the receiver that was providing the service on 2R. Well, that receiver now has moved over to 2E along with the frame synchronizer, and that's why she is indicated in the 2E path. So up to this point, this is presently the functionality you have had in your facility for the last 6 months at least. And what we'd like to do now is move forward on to our next screen that we're releasing in 102. And all one has to do is press the Receive Service Status button in the center of the screen, and we will then get an idea of the various status that will be presented via this screen. The nice portion of this screen is that the only two active buttons are buttons that will get us to two other screens. Therefore, the quote-unquote cleaning lady can't wipe you off the air or change equipment by cleaning the surface of this terminal. Starting from right and working to our left, notice that to the left of the control buttons, we have again indicated the source identification that is incoming on your 4 receivers. To the left of that, we have two boxes indicating the SID units. Now, if you recall, when we were on the other screen, the SID providing the service on 1R and 1E was in the normal mode, and that's indicated by the straight lines drawn through the box representing the SID. Likewise, SID number 2 we had intentionally transposed, and notice that we have symbols to indicate that the video would come in and then go through and come out the bottom of the box instead of the top of the box, and vice versa. So this screen also provides us a graphic representation of the paths that your audio and video would be taken. In between the two SID unit boxes is an area that will display the status of your frame synchronizer. Similar to what you had on the first screen, this area will display whether the frame synchronizer is online, offline. Also, if for some reason the receiver feeding that frame synchronizer has a fault and there is no video present, you'll have a no video indication. And finally, if there is something wrong with your black burst reference in your plant, that line will also display the fact that you might have a problem in that area. To the left of the SID unit boxes are lines that are drawn from receivers, and that information is gotten via reading the status of the two audio-video switchers that are in the earth station. And notice here we have the frame synchronizer connected to receiver number 2, and due to the fact that SID number 2 is transposed, the output of the frame synchronizer ends up being on 2E. Continuing on to our left and analyzing the various statuses that would be displayed from a receiver, notice that when receiver 1, just below the title receiver 1, there is an area that says online. Should the receiver be in local, that message would change to indicate local. Or should you have a synthesizer failure, that would also appear on that line. And lastly, if the site controller had a problem communicating with that receiver, you would also get a message indicating there's a problem with the communications. Below that status line, we have the channel that the synthesizer is tuned to. In this case, for receiver 1, it's 41, and receiver 4, 41, and likewise receiver 3. Notice receiver 2 is on 31, because that's on a different SKYPATH number. Lastly, the AGC values for each receiver is displayed, and the maximum value is 127. Which means we have a very strong signal here today. Should we experience a rain fade, or perhaps the wind would blow our antenna off position, you will see these numbers drastically change. If you get something around a 0 or 20, suspect you have some serious troubles, or perhaps there's a deluge outside and it's rarely raining out. Further to the left, we have the symbols that represent the primary and secondary antennas. And going down the two lines coming from those symbols, you will notice cross or X points to indicate where each receiver is connected to. And presently, all the receivers are connected to the primary antenna. A little later on, we will be moving one of the secondary antenna and also connecting receiver number 3 to it, and we will come back to the screen and see the new updated status. Finally, on the top of the screen, you will see that there is an indication as to what satellite the primary antenna is on, and likewise what satellite the secondary antenna is on. Again, this is a nice safe screen, and the only thing I can do is either push a button to get me back to the downlink status panel, or should I want to, and which would be also a new screen in this release, I can go to a screen that will permit me to change the services on the receive services on receiver number 3 and also the satellite in which the secondary antenna is pointed to. So why don't we get to that? When this screen comes up, it number one gives us the choice of 10 satellites to choose from and indicates which satellite it's presently going to go to should I push a bunch of buttons. If I want to, I could, here we're indicating SBS 1, I could select SBS 2 or 3, 4, SpaceNet 2, and I could continue down the line. Nothing is happening thus far other than I'm just pre-selecting a particular satellite. Also, in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you will notice the area updating to indicate which satellite I have selected, and that'll be used later when we get to the next screen, which talks about selecting a transponder. And up to this point, we haven't affected anything. Should I want, or should I change my mind, or the news department called and said, hey, don't move that antenna yet, we still have a feed coming, all I have to do is press the abort button, and I will go back to the receive status panels. But we're going to be bullish and go ahead and move antennas. So. If another message appears, what one should do is call your local SkyPath operator, explain to him the content of the message, and he will guide you accordingly. So let's consider moving the antenna to SBS 3. It's just a mere matter of pressing the Enter Satellite button, and we will then be asked to choose a transponder. I'd like to point out that we had transposed the 2R and 2E feeds, so the actual video change, audio change, is going to occur on the 2R feed and not the 2E feed. And there's a message on the bottom of the screen to indicate that SID number 2 is transposed and that the service will be on feed 2R. So let's press the Enter Satellite button. The screen now changes to ask us which particular transponder on this satellite we want the receiver to tune to. And let's select transponder number 9. Upon selecting the transponder we want, the Enter Transponder button blinks to prompt us to push that button next, and we'll do that. And finally, the Change Service button is blinking, and this is the last step to go, and the actual command will be implemented. Again, I'd like to point out that we still can back out by pressing the Abort Process button. So moving forward, we press the Change Service screen, and we note that we have a message on the bottom of the screen indicating that the secondary antenna is in motion, and notice our 2R receiver has gone to grass. Note that as the antenna is moving across the sky, you could see audio-video come up on the 2R receiver monitor temporarily. But as long as the message on the Fluke indicates that the antenna is still in motion, we haven't reached our destination yet. Notice that the message that indicated that the antenna was in motion has gone away, and we have on to our feed that's from SBS 3 transponder 9, and it's NBC Burbank. Once I'm on this screen, I could stay here and use the buttons to indicate which transponder I want to go to, and just push those buttons, and by hitting the enter transponder and service change buttons, I could tune the receiver and I'll get a much faster response. I've selected transponder number 1. I press the enter transponder button and the service change will retune the receiver to number 1. Or if I want, I can go back to 9, and there's our NBC's color bars again. Notice that also that the abort process button has changed to now indicate that I can go back to the downlink services. Should I want to change the SID that's feeding 2R and 2E so that this change occurs on 2E, I could go to the downlink service panel and transpose that feed. Last but not least, I'd like to indicate, to demonstrate the last enhancement we have to this download, and that's the news interrupt alert. When SKYPATH at either Burbank or New York generate a news alert, 2 things will happen. Number 1, there will be a flashing message at the bottom of your Fluke screen indicating a news alert and that they should monitor their 1R feed. And secondly, the Fluke terminal will beep once a second. This whole process will continue, if not intervened, for the next 6 minutes. At the end of 6 minutes, the site controller will automatically turn off the alert. Or if you see the message and you know that it's there and you don't need this constant reminder, all one has to do is to change the screen, and that will turn the alert off, as indicated. The news alert can occur on any screen. You don't have to be on the downlink service panel. Any screen will support the news alert. This concludes our presentation on how the news screens work on our new release, and likewise how the news interrupt alert works. Should you have any further questions, feel free to call your local SKYPATH control. And I'd like to give special thanks to the crew for their cooperation and hospitality here at KSBW.